Right, so welcome to our workshop on the Gates Cambridge Scholarship. I'll just quickly take you through the outline. I'll start by introducing Project EduAccess and OBP. Then I'll introduce you to your wonderful panelists today. And then they will take you through the eligibility criteria, the selection criteria, the timelines, in short, everything that you need to know about the scholarship. So just very quickly, EduAccess is an initiative that aims to democratize the higher education landscape in the UK and all over the world. We do so through 4 key interventions, which include mentoring, counseling, and role modeling, information, advice, and guidance, capacity building and leadership skill development, evidence-based advocacy, and evidence-based advocacy. This particular workshop has been organized in collaboration with the Oxford Pakistan program. So the Oxford Pakistan program is a first of its kind initiative for Pakistani and British Pakistani students and scholars. The initiative itself is based in University of Oxford, but it aims to increase the representation of Pakistani students both at Oxford and in the UK higher education landscape more generally. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our wonderful, wonderful panelists today. We have with us Rafiuallah Kakar and Minha Khan, who are both the Gates Cambridge Scholars, Minha from 2023 and Rafiuallah from this year. Both of them are doing their DPhils in education at the University of Cambridge. So with that, I'll hand it over to Minha to please kick us off. Thank you, Minha.
Great. Thank you so much, Wajeeha. And thank you all for joining this late in Pakistan. I know it's very late. And the session is recorded for anybody who would rather watch it later, so that's fine too. My name is Minha. I'm in the second year of my PhD at Cambridge, and I've been funded by the Gates Cambridge Scholarship. I want to start by also saying that I had applied twice. I got rejected once and I got accepted once, so I have some insights on what I learned in the process. It's not always easy, but you can get there. You can definitely get there. An overview of the scholarship itself, it covers the entire cost of you studying at Cambridge. This means your entire fees from the start to the end. And also they pay you a stipend. So while you live here, you don't have to worry about working, which is wonderful. They give about 80 full scholarships, and 2/3 of these scholarships are for PhD students. So most people who are awarded this will be doing a PhD, which means 3 to 4 years of funding. In the first round of applications, it is mostly for people in the US, so that's already passed. What is relevant for all of us is the remaining 55 scholarships, which are for all international students, which means non-US, non-UK, and we'll be talking about that a little bit more today. Great. So as I mentioned, the core components that the scholarship covers is your university fee, your maintenance allowance, which is the amount of money you get every couple of months to pay for basic things. They'll pay for your flight to the UK and back after the end of your course. You cannot get paid to go home in the middle, but any visa cost and immigration health surcharge costs they will cover. There's also other kinds of discretionary funding, which means not everybody will get this, but if you are applicable for it, you might be able to get this, which is academic development funding. So if you want to go to a conference or have a specific course in addition to your PhD, you have family allowance. So in case, for example, you have children and you need to be able to increase the amount of money you get, maternity or paternity funding, and hardship fund in case something goes wrong. In terms of eligibility, you can apply for a scholarship as long as you're not a UK citizen, which I think many of us will not be. And you have to be applying to either a PhD, an MLit, or a 1-year postgraduate course. There are some courses which are not at all considered, and the list is already on the slides, and you can also just check on the website. The majority of your courses will be covered completely. So there's 4 selection criteria that your application will be based on. And it's really important to remember that all 4 of these have somewhat equal weightage. And really what you need to do in your application is to show how you fulfill all 4 of these criteria in a way that they're not necessarily distinct from one another, but also come together to tell your story. So it's not just that you're a good student and you have a good reason and you're committed to improving the lives of others and you have leadership potential, but instead, how are all of these 4 coming together to create you and your journey and your commitment to the field? So we'll talk a little bit about the selection criteria, and with that, I will hand over to my other panelist, Rafiuallah.
Hello, hi. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you, and if there's any issues, we can always jump in.
Thank you very much. Please accept my sincere apologies for the slight delay in joining. We were just wrapping up another event that we had organized. So, in terms of the selection criteria for the Gates Scholarship, I think the first one, the intellectual ability, it's relatively simple. I think it's primarily measured in terms of your academic performance in your last degree, whatever academic qualification or degree you had. And since the Gates Scholarship is for the University of Cambridge only, uh, so they expect you to have a minimum level of GPA, grades, whatever is the whatever is the system in your part of the world. So they expect you to have a minimum GPA or grade so that you can get admission into a course at Cambridge. And generally, I think as a rule of thumb, for masters and MPhil courses, I think in terms of GPA, and this is my understanding and experience, feel free to add to what I say. I think generally a minimum of 3.7 or something is sort of the GPA that they expect. And for most courses, it varies from course to course, but for most courses, this is sort of the cutoff, a minimum threshold of GPA that one should have. In terms of PhD, for PhD applicants, they are not necessarily looking for GPA and scores, but for the PhD applications are also assessed on the basis of your, let's say, if you've done an MPhil or a master's, your dissertation, and if you have any subsequent professional experience, research experience. So those factors also count when it comes to assessing PhD applicants. Next, please. Reasons for choice, of course. So in your Gates application, I think this is the area where basically your skill to present your profile, to sell yourself matters a lot. Your pitch, what is your sale pitch? And it begins with the choice of your course. And there are two things that I was particularly conscious of, and based on the guidelines provided by the Gates House, that's how I dealt with it. But other people might have different approach to it. So Minha might want to speak about this as well. So first, your choice of course should have some linkages and relevance with your previous studies and professional experience. So there must be some sort of justification and coherence in your academic journey, or if you are a mid-career or early career professional in your professional journey. So linkages with your past, and then linkages with your future goals. So the choice of course should also have some relevance with what you want to do in your career. And and this is basically, you have to present a coherent narrative of why do you want to do this course. Sorry, one clarification question. I hope it's okay to speak in English, or or all the audience from Pakistan, or do we have participants from across the world?
They
I
largely
think so.
from Pakistan.
Yeah.
Okay. Chale, thank you. So So for the choice of course, I think it's just a coherent and justified explanation of why do you want to do a particular course based on your past experience and previous studies, and how is it linked with your future goals. Next, please. For me, I think this is probably the most important, among the most important parts of your application, and the most among the most tricky parts as well, because your academic profile is what it is at the time of application. I mean, you can't do much about it. Uh, Commitment to improving the lives of others is something, it's different people understand this concept differently, and it's a fluid concept. So it is very important to understand it correctly, and then to understand how can you make a convincing case of your commitment to leadership and improving the lives of others. I think one risk here is that I have seen many applications in other scholarship committees that I am part of, where people usually make these broad, generic, sweeping statements that I want to do this, I want to do this. This is all fine. I think what the scholarship committee is looking for. Should I switch to Urdu as some participants are asking? Is that okay? Or should I continue speaking in English? My apologies.
No, not at all. I think either is fine. Whatever
Okay.
everybody is most comfortable with.
Okay, that makes sense. तो आपने जो कमिटमेंट टू इम्प्रूविंग द लाइव्स ऑफ अदर्स के हवाले से बात करनी है, ये सिर्फ स्वीपिंग स्टेटमेंट्स नहीं देने के जी आप पाकिस्तान में सोशल चेंज मेकर बनना चाहते हैं, आप विमेन एम्पावरमेंट के लिए कुछ करना चाहते हैं, ये बातें ठीक है, लेकिन ये सिर्फ तब सेंस बनाएंगी व्हेन you substantiate them with evidence. So in your previous professional career, in your academic studies, there must be evidence that you were actually committed to making a difference in the lives of others. Or evidence kya ho sakta hai? For example, for relatively fresh grads or those who are coming directly from the undergrad, आप जिस एरिया में आगे पढ़ना चाहते हैं, क्या कोई आपने अंडरग्रेड में इंटर्नशिप्स की है, क्या आपने कोई नॉन प्रॉफिट या रेलेवेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के साथ कोई काम किया है, सो दैट शोज योर कमिटमेंट, एंड सिर्फ कहना काफी नहीं होता कि आप इंटरेस्टेड है. सिमिलरली, इफ यू आर एन अर्ली करियर प्रोफेशनल और इफ यू हैव रिसेंटली कंप्लीटेड योर अंडरग्रेड और मास्टर्स, आपसे ये तवक्को नहीं रखी जा रही कि आपने किसी बड़े पोजीशन पे सर्व किया होगा और कोई बहुत बड़ी तब्दीली लाएगी. ऑल दे एक्सपेक्ट यू इज कि एनीथिंग दैट यू कुड पॉसिबली डू गिवन द स्टेज ऑफ करियर यू वर एट, जिससे ये इंडिकेट हो कि यू आपकी कमिटमेंट थी. सिमिलरली आई थिंक लीडरशिप में ये भी होता है जनरली, वॉलंटियरिंग वर्क, working for non-profit, volunteering work. So these are some of the ideas. आपने इस तरह का काम किया होगा. If there are any undergrads or students listening, this is how you make a convincing case that you are committed to making a difference in the lives of others. Just claiming it or making tall claims is not enough and not helpful. तो वो कुछ भी हो सकता है. वो community project हो सकते हैं, वो advocacy हो सकती है. Let's say if you are a citizen journalist, if you are a social media activist, or if you are an activist of a social movement, that's also counts. कि आपने advocacy की है towards a cause. So I think this very enjoyed notion of making a difference in the lives of others को थोड़ा सा इसको भी problematize करना जरूरी है. इसका what this means is कि ये एविडेंस सिर्फ ये नहीं है कि आपने किसी एनजीओ में काम किया है, ये भी एविडेंस हो सकता है कि आपकी ने कोई एडवोकेसी की हो फॉर अ कॉज. सो आई थिंक ये इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट, इसलिए मैं इस पे ज्यादा बात कर रहा हूँ कि अक्सर लोग इस पार्ट में एप्लीकेशन कमजोर रह जाती है, क्योंकि उनको पता नहीं होता कि हम क्या पिच करें और उसका एविडेंस क्या होगा. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. The leadership potential, I think this is pretty much linked to my answer to the last question as well. जो पिछला जो अभी हमने बातें की, commitment to making a difference in the lives of others. Again, ये सिर्फ कहने से नहीं होगा, आपने एविडेंस उसका देना है. और लीडरशिप पोटेंशियल में अक्सर इट्स इम्पॉर्टेंट कि आप हाईलाइट करें कि किसी सिचुएशन में आपने क्या किया है. दैट इज वेरी इम्पॉर्टेंट. और मैं समझता हूँ कि लीडरशिप पोटेंशियल में भी दीज एक्सपीरियंसेस जो अभी मैंने आपसे पिछले उसमें शेयर किए हैं, वो बड़े इम्पॉर्टेंट है और उनका एविडेंस देना. और दूसरा, आई थिंक this is very relevant to your personal statement. One of the most common mistakes that students make in writing their personal statements is that they provide a descriptive account of their professional journeys or experiences. Don't provide a descriptive narration of what you did, and most often it's in a chronological order. वो तो आप अपने CV में already दे चुके हैं. What the committee expects कि जो भी आपने एक्स्ट्रा करिकुलर एक्टिविटीज की एज अ स्टूडेंट, किसी प्रोजेक्ट में हिस्सा लिया, वॉलंटियरिंग की, हाउ डिड दैट ट्रांसफॉर्म यू एज एन इंडिविजुअल. अगर आज आपने कोई एक बात, सिंगल बिगेस्ट लेसन अभी तक जो मैंने बात की उससे सीखनी, आई थिंक वो ये बात है कि डोंट सिंपली रिकाउंट योर एक्सपीरियंसेस, rather specify how did they transform you as an individual, both intellectually and personally, professionally. कि आपने लेट्स से वॉलंटियरिंग से क्या सीखा, आपने क्या नई बात आपके जहन में आई, आपने कोई कम्युनिटी प्रोजेक्ट किया, व्हाट डिड यू लर्न फ्रॉम दैट. सो a more analytical and applied account of how did your previous experiences, journey, or you were inspired by a book, any inspiration, कि how did they transform you. तो similarly ये जो leadership potential और commitment to improve the lives of others, जब आप अपने personal statement या application में इसकी evidence देंगे, तो descriptive narration सिर्फ नहीं देनी कि आप एक तरतीब में बताएं कि ये किया, वो CV में already होगा. आप बताएं कि उससे आपकी आपका थॉट प्रोसेस कैसे मुतासिर हुआ, एज एन इंसान आपकी सोच में क्या फ़र्क आया, या उसने आपके जहन में कोई नया सवाल क्या जनरेट किया. सो आई थिंक दिस इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. ये सबसे बड़ी कॉमन मिस्टेक जो मुझे एप्लीकेशंस में नज़र आती है, या जो स्टेटमेंट्स मैं रिव्यू करता हूँ उसमें ये अक्सर एक बड़ा चैलेंज होता है. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. आई थिंक मिन्हा, यहाँ से आपने टेक ओवर करना है, बट आई एम हैप्पी टू चिप इन आखिर में अगर किसी का कोई सवाल हो.
Thank you so much for going through all of the criteria. And of course, mein koi bhi sawal hai, we'll have time at the end of the session, inshallah, to answer all of them. So the timeline. It will be dependent on your course. So आप पहले अपनी डिग्री के लिए अप्लाई करते हैं, कैम्ब्रिज के कोर्स के लिए अप्लाई करते हैं, and that will be affiliated with a specific date, usually start of December or January. Most of them are in December, so it's coming very soon. I highly recommend knowing the date and working towards it. And you will submit your scholarship application at the same time that you submit everything else for your course. So be aware of that date, and you will know the application outcome by around Wednesday, March 5th, 2005. How to apply, as I just mentioned, when you are applying for your specific course at Cambridge, then there will be a section to choose whether or not you want to apply to the Gates Cambridge Scholarship. If you choose you want to apply to this scholarship, they will ask you for three things. One is the Gates Cambridge Statement. This is only 500 words, but this is where you will talk about all of those four criteria that we just discussed, about how you meet all four of the selection criteria. For PhD applicants, there will be a research proposal. You will already most likely have to develop this for the course anyway, so it's not something in addition, but it will be very important as something that they will judge you on. And finally, in addition to 2 academic references, which will most likely be from professors, you need a Gates Cambridge reference. Gates Cambridge reference is not only talking about your academics, but talking about how you meet all 4 criteria. So you are telling the committee how you are well positioned for this scholarship, how you meet all 4 criteria. And then someone external, which is your reference letter, is also saying, yes, we also see these 4 criteria in this candidate and we recommend them forward. And Gates Cambridge will look at all of these different material when deciding whether or not to move to the next round. So this is a very big and important question. Who should you ask for your Gates Cambridge scholarship? Already you will have had 2 references that are academic. So that is from professors or somebody who supervised your supervised your research before. They can even be an employer, sorry. And the Gates Cambridge scholarship, instead of looking at your academics, will now have to look at you in all 4 criteria. So try to find somebody who knows you as a leader, knows you as someone who is committed to improving the lives of others, knows why you are doing this course. And mostly you will have to talk to them about these 4 criteria beforehand so that you are on the same page, so that everybody knows that what needs to be in the set of recommendation and how it should be written. So I personally asked an employer from a job that I was working with until I applied for this PhD. It would be great to hear from Rafi, who he had asked for his letter of recommendation, somebody who doesn't just know you as a student, but knows you in many ways. We can go to the next slide. So as I already mentioned, the person that you ask, they should know you a little bit more deeply. If they don't already know you, it is really good to have a meeting with them before, to ask them what they're going to write, to help them if they need any support in getting evidence that you are a good candidate for this scholarship. Yes, please go ahead.
Minha, when you are done on the letters of reference, I want to add to this.
Please add, please.
Okay, Ji. I think this is a very Pakistan-specific problem or probably a South Asia problem. Letters of recommendation again बहुत critical part play करते हैं. आप इसको अगर यूँ देखें कि when you are applying for the Gates scholarship or for that matter any other scholarship, there are only 2, in my opinion, 2 parts of the application where you can still add some value and that are in your control. एक आपका personal statement होता है और दूसरा आपके letters होते हैं. बाकी आपकी एकेडमिक्स जीपीए ग्रेड्स वो तो जो है वो है, आप उस वक्त उसका कुछ नहीं कर सकते. सो दीज आर द 2 एरियाज वेयर यू कैन स्टिल ऐड वैल्यू. तो इनकी इंपॉर्टेंस समझना जरा जरूरी है. तो उसमें जो लेटर्स ऑफ रेफरेंस है, एज आई सेड, आई एम सेइंग दिस बेस्ड ऑन being part of the shortlisting and selection committees for some other global scholarships. I think one of the serious problems in Pakistan is कि हमारे I'm sorry to say but हमारे एकेडेमिया में उनको भी अच्छा रेफरेंस लेटर लिखना नहीं आता और वो स्टूडेंट्स के साथ ज्यादती करते हैं. बुरी क्वालिटी का एक लेटर लिख के, और अक्सर तो मतलब हमें पता है अक्सर यूं भी होता है कि वो स्टूडेंट से ही लिखवाते हैं और उनको कहते हैं कि बस आप दे दें. सो अब इधर ट्रिक ये, मुझे भी बहुत सारे लोगों ने जब मैं उधर था अप्रोच करते थे, वो फिर अक्सर ऐसे बंदों से लिखवाते हैं, दे गो आफ्टर बिग नेम्स एंड बिग ब्रांड. अच्छा, अब जब आप बिग ब्रांड या बिग नेम के पीछे जाते हैं, आप लेटर तो लिखवा लेंगे लेकिन वो अगर आपको स्पेसिफिकली नहीं जानता, वो कोई अच्छी बात कर ही नहीं सकता, स्पेसिफिक बात. सो मोस्ट कॉमन रेफरेंस लेटर्स में मिस्टेक क्या होता है? वही जेनेरिक स्टेटमेंट्स कि जी शी इज अ वेरी पंक्चुअल हार्ड वर्किंग स्टूडेंट, फला फला फला. These statements will make sense only if they are backed up by substantial specific evidence. कि हार्ड वर्क की क्या आपके पास मिसाल है? किसी क्लास में, किसी डिस्कशन में उसने कुछ ऐसा कहा, किसी एक्टिविटी में उसने लीड लिया. सो सम ये बातें, ये स्वीपिंग स्टेटमेंट्स तब हेल्प करेंगी जब द रेफरी हैज एविडेंस टू बैक देम अप. और दूसरा, रेफरेंस लेटर का अपना एक फॉर्मेट होता है. सो अक्सर जो जिस कमेटीज में मैं बैठता हूं, मैं देखता हूं कि जो फॉरेन क्वालिफाइड होते हैं वो बेचारों के पास, उनके पास जबरदस्त रेफरीज, उनके रेफरेंस लेटर्स आउटस्टैंडिंग होते हैं, और पब्लिक सेक्टर यूनिवर्सिटीज के अदरवाइज एक्सीलेंट कैंडिडेट्स मार खा जाते हैं बिकॉज ऑफ पोरली रिटन रेफरेंस लेटर्स. सो आपकी ट्रेड ऑफ ये है कि आपने ब्रांड के पीछे भी नहीं जाना, ब्रांड इतना मैटर नहीं करता खास तौर पर फॉर योर एकेडमिक रेफरेंसेस। अगर वो आपको स्पेसिफिकली नहीं जानता, इफ ही और शी कैन नॉट क्लेम दैट यू वर्कड फॉर देम और दे टॉट यू समथिंग, जितना भी बड़ा ब्रांड हो कोई खास फायदा नहीं होना स्पेसिफिकली फॉर द एकेडमिक रेफरेंसेस। तो आपने उन लोगों से लिखवाना है जो जिन्होंने आपको कुछ पढ़ाया हो, जो आपके बारे में स्पेसिफिक बात कर सके, एक। नंबर 2, फिर आपने, अगर वो खुद नहीं लिख सकते अच्छा रेफरेंस लेटर, और अक्सर वैसे ही वो पता नहीं क्या करते रहते हैं, मेक श्योर वो आप समझे अपने कॉन्टेक्स्ट में जिस तरह आप कर सकते हैं, मेक श्योर कि वो अच्छा रेफरेंस लेटर हो। और अच्छे रेफरेंस लेटर पे ऑनलाइन बहुत सारा मवाद अवेलेबल है, लेकिन जनरली क्या होता है कि वो पहले अपना तारुफ कराते हैं, फिर ये बताते हैं कि इस कैंडिडेट को कितने अरसे से जानते हैं, किस कैपेसिटी में जानते हैं, एंड देन उनकी स्पेसिफिक्स उस एप्लीकेशन स्कॉलरशिप रिलेटेड जो मुख्तलिफ क्राइटेरिया है उसके अगेंस्ट वो अपनी एक असेसमेंट देते हैं, और हर उसके अगेंस्ट जितने अच्छी स्पेसिफिक एग्जाम्पल्स हो उतना बेहतर है। सो दिस इज वन इम्पॉर्टेंट पार्ट जो आपको याद रखने। जो आपका प्रोफेशनल रेफरेंस है, यानी जो गेट्स का स्पेसिफिक रेफरेंस लेटर है, आई थिंक वो आपने अगर किसी के साथ काम किया हो या किसी और कैपेसिटी में नॉन एकेडमिक सेटिंग्स में, जो आपकी नॉन एकेडमिक एबिलिटीज, लीडरशिप स्किल्स, कमिटमेंट टू इम्प्रूविंग द लाइव्स ऑफ अदर्स के बारे में बात कर सके, वो अच्छा होगा। तो बाकी जो उसूल है वो इस पर भी अप्लाई होते हैं जो मैंने आपसे बात की। इट इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। और पाकिस्तान में चूंकि मिन्हा अक्सर बच्चों को इतना ये प्रोफेसर इनको ये उनके साथ बैठे समझाएं, उससे कोई खास फर्क नहीं पड़ता अनफॉर्चुनेटली। तो इसलिए अब आपने अपने अपने कॉन्टेक्स्ट में फिगर आउट करना है, चूंकि हम रिकॉर्डेड सेशन में बोल रहे हैं, मैं ऐसी बातें भी नहीं करना चाहता जो जो कल जैसे एक अलग प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट हो। लेकिन मेक श्योर के आपके रेफरीज जो है उनके पास आपके बारे में कहने के लिए स्पेसिफिक एग्जांपल्स और कंटेंट हो, और एक अच्छा वेल स्ट्रक्चर्ड वेल रिटन रेफरेंस लेटर हो, बजाय कि ये स्वीपिंग स्टेटमेंट्स और जेनेरिक बातें जो हो। एंड लास्टली ये टिप भी मैं ज़रूर दूंगा, जो ब्राइट स्टूडेंट्स और कैंडिडेट्स है, अगेन पाकिस्तानी रेफरेंस लेटर्स में वो कम नज़र आता है। इट इज़ ऑलवेज हेल्पफुल टू टू क्वांटिफाई और टू गिव अ सेंस। मसलन टॉप रेफरेंस लेटर्स मैंने वो देखे हैं जिनमें रेफरी कहता है कि जी मैं पिछले 20 साल में जो स्टूडेंट्स मैंने पढ़ाए हैं उनमें से ये टॉप 5% में आता है, या जो जिस क्लास में मैं पढ़ा रहा था ये टॉप 1% में आता है। सो इस तरह की एक असेसमेंट भी इट इज़ हेल्पफुल फॉर द पीपल इन द कमिटी जो एग्जामिन कर रहे होते हैं। ओवर टू यू मिन्हा।
Bilkul, those are great points. Also to remember कि everybody has to submit the letters of recommendation at the same deadline of your application. Even if one letter is missing, your application is not considered. So make sure person who agreed to write your letter of recommendation actually submits it. Otherwise, your application will not be considered. And just another point is I know a lot of people use AI to write letters of recommendation or write personal statements. It's usually very easy to tell if AI has written it and it does not move forward, even if you are a great candidate. So really, really think about it before you use AI. The selection process is very simple. Once your application goes through and it is reviewed, academic departments in Cambridge will choose a very small group of applications that they think are very good. These small group of people will be interviewed by the Gates Cambridge committee. It's a very short interview, about 20 minutes, but then the selection will be made right after just one interview only. And we have additional resources that these slides will be shared with everyone. You can go through them in your own time. And I think that is all of our slides, so we can move on to questions.
Thank you so much, Minha and Rafiuallah, for this very, very comprehensive presentation. I think you have covered all the major points of both the selection criteria and the process. So thank you for that. I think people have already started raising their hands, so I'll just pass on the mic. Maz, would you like to go first? Please unmute करके पूछ लें.
Assalamu alaikum. I want to ask a question from Rafiuallah Kakar, sir. That is that I am currently studying MPhil economics from Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Whereas I want to go again for MS program. Now the thing is that I haven't worked in any of these kind of things like the uh, what could we say, the SDG programs or such thing like that. But I have worked somewhere like in some projects, research related projects. So can it be helpful in my research, in my personal statements? And another question here is that is it okay for the Cambridge University that I can go for another MS program? It wouldn't destroy my application form.
I think, Minha, do you want to respond or should I go first?
Yes.
Thank you. I think as far as your first question is concerned, as I said, given the diversity of the participants here, I just share those examples for the sake of understanding and for simplicity. It doesn't mean that other activities or other work that you have done is not appreciated, as long as you are able to articulate it in that way. So, for example, if you have been part of PIDE, I'm sure you must have been part of some interesting development related research or research policy research. So research itself, if you've been doing policy research or academic research, that itself shows your commitment to something, and that is your commitment to academia, or to, if you have been doing policy research, to generate evidence base for informed policy making. So it is equally important. So that's exactly what I meant when I said this. Don't fall in this NGOized notion of community service trap. That's one way of doing, or one way of indicating your commitment. But there can be other ways. So policy research, academic research is absolutely fine and welcome, as long as you are able to articulate it and link it with your goals and your course of study. As far as another MPhil, I think कोई explicit pabandi nahi hai. There is no explicit ban, but you must have exceptionally strong reasons to do another MPhil in the same subject. I think if you can justify it, yes, but you must have a very convincing and solid case. Otherwise, the committee will probably think that they are just, this is not the best use of their resource to fund another MPhil for a student who has already done it.
Gee, thank you. Dania, please go ahead.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, perfect. So first of all, thank you so much for the lovely session. मुझे बस अपना थोड़ा सा background बताना था. I graduated from IBA, ठीक है, almost 2 years ago, and I've done a lot of work, not just after graduation, but उससे पहले भी. मैंने कोई 6-7 साल अपनी खुद की non-profit चलाई है, and then I also had an opportunity to volunteer at other places, did some internships. So basically I have a pretty strong profile, but doing all of this मेरी अपनी GPA जो है वो काफ़ी गिर गई थी, ठीक है, because I was doing so much outside of the classroom that I could not sustain my GPA. And I currently I graduated with a 3.1. My IELTS score is also good, everything is good, it's just that my GPA is something which lacks. So do you think that applying to any program at all at the University of Cambridge would be feasible for me, or would it just be a waste of time?
Mina, I think you should go first.
Sure. That's a very good question. So I would start by saying that I think what they're looking for is somebody who's primarily an academic and a scholar moving forward, because they are looking for people to do master's degrees and PhDs. Academics is what they're paying you for. They're paying you to be a student. So that's why there's a reason that they have such a high GPA requirement. However, there are circumstances where somebody will have a lower GPA than their potential is, and that's because of personal reasons or because of any reasons. And there is a space where you can explain that. In that you can explain exactly why maybe these grades or this GPA does not reflect your actual intellectual capacity. and that instead you have other ways to prove that you are a good student. But it is really important that the people who are looking at your application can tell, yes, this person has the ability to succeed in Cambridge. They want you to be the best of Cambridge, and they're paying you to be the best of Cambridge. So let's say your GPA for some reason, and many people have reasons why their GPA is not that high, but then you need to show them other ways in which you compensated. Did you get research publications? Did you work on projects where you did really phenomenally, for example? Um, but you will need to explain that, and you will need to prove your intellectual ability somewhere. Back to you, Rafiuallah.
I think I fully agree with what Minha has said. I'll just add on to it. Master's MPhil level pe, I think it is going to be a major challenge. I think there is a minimum requirement of GPA. I don't know if there is a course, probably जो non-academic courses होते हैं, जिस तरह कभी-कभी public policy इस जैसे courses में, उसमें at times कभी-कभी वो relax कर देते, but again उसके लिए भी, as Minha explained, you must have a very strong explanation. Public policy, social policy type के course में एक और opportunity जो होती है, PhD applications जो senior या mid careers हो, उसमें भी बाज औकात, again you must have a very strong explanation कि जहाँ पे your professional experience actually demonstrates that you have not only made up for your low GPA but also कि जो भी आप research MPhil या PhD में करना चाह रहे हैं, उसके लिए you have the academic ability to succeed in a place like Cambridge.
All right, thank you so much, both of you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Before moving on, एक सवाल है जो काफी लोगों ने chat में भेजा हुआ है, so I'll just quickly ask that, which is there any requirement for any standardized tests like GRE or any language tests? So if you could just answer that before we move on.
Minha, would you like to go first?
Feel free. Feel free.
I think मेरी understanding इस पे है, once you get the offer of admission, you get the offer letter and scholarship, उसके बाद IELTS की requirement होती है, और I was surprised Minha, क्योंकि मेरी understanding ये थी कि अगर आपकी आखिरी degrees जो है वो ऐसे मुल्क में हो जहाँ पे the first जो language of instruction वो English है या English first language हो. So my last I had done 2 masters both in the UK, but they still required me to take the IELTS test. So I think पहले शायद waiver मिल जाते थे, but मेरी understanding अब ये है कि जी IELTS language test कोई ना कोई आपको देना ही पड़ेगा.
ठीक है, thank you so much. Move on. Mubashir, please go ahead.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Rafiuallah and Minha, both of you. Just 2 quick questions, please. Minha, you just said there is a space on the form to mention extenuating circumstances. I don't think I've seen that on the form. So do we just put that as an extra attachment? If you could just clarify that. Also, you mentioned that you applied twice, you were successful once, and not on the other occasion. So specifically in the context of trying to fit your personal statement within 500 words, what do you think you did wrong the first time that you were able to rectify the second time around? Thank you.
Absolutely. So about where you can write the extenuating circumstances, for me, it was in applying to my course. At the end of the application, they say, is there anything you have wanted to add that maybe we didn't ask questions about? It should be in every application form. Just at the end of your course application, they do ask. Otherwise, of course, in your, in the application itself also, the Gates Cambridge one, you can weave it into the story. But there should be a section that says, if there's anything else you want to add, and that's where you would write this. But in terms of the difference between applying the first time and the second time, the difference is exactly as Rafiuallah had mentioned, which is I told them what I would like to do, but I wasn't specific and I didn't give them evidence. So I told them I want to change the world through education. But in what ways? How will I achieve that? How do I prove to them that when they give me so much money, eventually I will do something good? They're taking a chance on me. They're taking a chance on all of us. And so I need to show them that I have a reason that they should take a chance on me. And so the second time when I applied, I was very, very specific. I would say that the way I found it most helpful was that for every single point I made, I first wrote down all the points I wanted to make. For every single point I made, I said, how can I show this? So if I said, I really care about education in Pakistan, I can show this because I worked at this organization for 5 years. If I said, I am somebody who really thrives in leadership environments, I can show this because I led this project or I was part of leading this project. And so now every time I say something, I'm showing them, not just telling them. I also think that there was a lot more clarity on my reason for choosing the course. Because previously I said, I'm interested in education. I would like to learn this. This is very exciting. Cambridge is a great university. They know all of that. None of that is new. All of us have written Cambridge is a great university in our application. It's a useless sentence. The next time I applied, I said, I want to make this change in the world, very specific. Cambridge will help me achieve this, very specific. And here's why I am making a case for myself, almost like making a case in court. You're standing in front of the judges and you're really making a case in court. So those are the two things I did differently. I would recommend writing out all your points, writing out the evidence for the points, and then writing the statement. Don't start by writing the statement. Start by writing the points that you want to make in the statement.
I think this was excellent. Minha, ये very important points आपने रेस किए. मैं just इसमें एक point add करूँगा. I think in case of PhD applicants, the choice of supervisor, वो भी you should have a reason. सिर्फ ये नहीं कि आप ये कहेंगे जी वो बड़े अच्छे academic हैं, सब अच्छे हैं. So you need to have a specific reason कि आपका काम उनके काम के साथ relevant है, उनकी regional expertise आपके area of research के साथ aligned है. So I think Minha gave very excellent examples के किस तरह आपने जो अपनी justification है या reason है वो specific बात करनी है.
Right. Thank you so much again, both of you. Ramla, you can go next, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible?
जी आपकी आवाज आ रही है.
Thank you so much for the nice session. I'm a graduate in development studies and conflict and peace studies. My MS is in conflict and peace studies. And it's been 2.5 years I'm working in development sector, and I'm also taking lectures. I'm teaching as visiting faculty. Though my degree was in development studies and conflict and peace studies, but my focus, I was always very inclined towards women-centric issues. So my academic research was on women-centric issues, both my MS and bachelor's research. So for my PhD, though I want to pursue my PhD in sociology, but I want to pursue academic research on women-centric issue, maybe in patriarchy or the socio-cultural barriers to women empowerment in Pakistan. So is it possible that though I choose the degree for sociology, I recommend or I suggest my research proposal for women-centric issue? And if yes, so how do I relate my research interest with sociology, as my work experience is also related to women-centric issues or gender empowerment, and my academic research, my previous research is also in women-centric issues. So how may I do it? And if I can, also please suggest how may I propose, how may I design my PhD proposal that will strengthen my case. Thank you so much.
I can start. So first of all, sociology includes women's issues for sure. Sociology is a study of society. Society includes women for at least about 50%, so that's very relevant. I think there's two things to look at here. One, your PhD proposal is made with a supervisor in mind. There's a particular person at the faculty of or department of sociology that you want to work with, and you need to see how you can look at their relevant areas of expertise and align that with your interests and make a case that you want to study sociology as a PhD because of this faculty member on this specific issue. And that is something that you'll have to work with. Either first email them your ideas. If they reply, great, or you can email them a proposal as well, and that's fine. The second question is about how do you show that your previous experience is relevant? And it's totally fine if you're from a different field and that you have the right skills, but you've maybe done them in a different field. So, for example, my whole background is in sociology, but I'm doing a PhD in education. The reason that's not a problem is because the same skills are used in sociology, you can still use in education. Critical thinking, writing skills, leadership skills, all of that is the same. And if for an issue like women's empowerment, there's so many different ways you can support women's empowerment. And if you've done that in any way, that still counts towards your sociology degree. So you need to make sure of two things. I would say one, that you fulfill all the criteria of the Gates Cambridge Scholarship, and you make sure you show them how you're fulfilling those criteria. And secondly, and maybe even more importantly, that you work on your PhD proposal with a faculty member, or at least with the faculty members or professors area of expertise in mind in that specific department. You need to make a case for that particular professor.
Thank you, Minha. I think, Soha, you can go next, please.
Hello. Thank you so much for this amazing session. This was really helpful. So I'm currently an undergraduate student. I'm in my final year. The question that I have for you both is that you guys talked about how this scholarship is looking for people who have given back to society, and there are leaders and different examples of those and how we should incorporate them. If you guys don't mind answering, could you talk a little bit about what you guys wrote about in your leadership potential and giving back to society? Because I just want to see what their ideal is in terms of the scale that they're looking to achieve. I think my question is mostly geared towards this because I might not apply this year because I feel like I haven't done much, but I might apply next year. So what could I do in that 1 year to achieve that level of scale? Thank you.
Please go ahead.
I think at the risk of giving the wrong kind of encouragement, मैं ये तो नहीं बताऊंगा कि मैंने क्या लिखा, मुझे शायद अभी याद भी ना हो, क्योंकि उसे फिर लोग गलत वो ले लेते कि यही ही फॉर्मूला है. देयर इज नो सिंगल फॉर्मूला. मैं इतना कह सकता हूँ, लेट्स से मैं पीएचडी कर रहा हूँ एजुकेशन में, बट इट्स फोकस्ड ऑन द पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी ऑफ एजुकेशन. एंड आप में से जो लोग ये डिसिप्लिन स्विच की बात कर रहे थे, फॉर एग्जांपल, आई एम नॉट अ सोशियोलॉजी पर्सन. My undergrad is in politics and economics. I did masters in public policy and development studies, and I applied for a PhD in education. क्योंकि मैं एजुकेशन में भी उसकी जो पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी है, जो उसका पॉलिसी साइड है, उस पर ज़्यादा फोकस्ड हूँ. सो आई कुड जस्टिफाई दिस, और ये दिस वाज नॉट एन इशू मेरे एप्लीकेशन में. आई थिंक जो पर्सनल स्टेटमेंट में आपने बात की, एक तो जेनेरिक आपने लीडरशिप स्किल्स डेमोन्स्ट्रेट करनी है, वो जो अब आपके एक्सपीरियंसेस होते हैं उनसे सामने आता है. बट चूंकि आई वाज अ पीएचडी कैंडिडेट, सो मैंने ज़्यादा फोकस किया अपने उन एक्सपीरियंसेस पे जो पॉलिसी रेलेवेंट थे. एंड देन मैंने सिर्फ उनको डिस्क्रिप्टिवली नरेट नहीं किया कि जी मैंने ये कर दिया, उसके बाद ये कर दिया, उसके बाद ये कर दिया. जो मेरे रिसर्च क्वेश्चंस है जिनमें मैं जेन्युइनली इंटरेस्टेड हूँ, मैंने वो सवालात मेरे एक्सपीरियंस में से निकले कि मेरे पॉलिसी एक्सपीरियंस ने के दौरान मुझे ये पजल्स, ये सवालात मेरे जहन में आए, और जब मैंने उन पे पढ़ा तो लिटरेचर में आई रियलाइज्ड कि वो तो एक वेल एस्टैब्लिश्ड डिबेट है, और उस जगह पर मैंने अपनी पीएचडी प्रपोजल की बात की. सो आई थिंक चूंकि मेरा रिसर्च पॉलिसी रिसर्च है, सो फॉर मी मैंने इस तरह से किया कि मैंने अपने रिसर्च एक्सपीरियंस में से उसको नरेट करने की बजाय कि उसने मुझे कैसे चेंज किया, बट ऑल्सो कि मेरे जहन में नए सवालात क्या जन्म दिए. सो आई थिंक आपके लिए भी यही होगा. मिन्हा, ओवर टू यू, आप अपना बता सकती हैं प्लीज.
Bilkul. I think for a master's degree, the expectation is different. They don't expect, hey, you've done everything and then now you're coming to them as this very accomplished person. But they do expect that while you were doing your undergraduate degree, you were also doing other things that make you exceptional. So think about your own experience, because I think often candidates don't remember that they've actually done a lot of things, and they come and they say, "हमने तो कुछ नहीं किया." नहीं, मगर there's been opportunities where you volunteered, you started a small project, you were part of a research project, you helped a professor on a project. Lots of little things that maybe to you are very small, but actually can look really good on an application. So I think the first place to start is to sit down and say, अगर मुझे prove करना होता कि I'm ready for this master's program, what are the things I could do? Where did I volunteer? Where did I work? Other than actual studies, मैंने और क्या किया हुआ है? And I think that's a really important question to ask yourself, and then see. Some people have done a lot. They were very active in undergraduate. Some people were not very active. In that case, take a year, do something that you care about, do something that will make your application stronger. That's fine. But I think it really depends on a case-to-case basis. I worked for 1 year, and I then did my master's and then applied for this program. But I know people who've come directly from undergraduate. I know people who've taken 5, 6 years, 10 years. And so there's no right answer for this.
इस पे मैं ये एक चीज ऐड करूंगा, मुझे मिन्हा आपकी बात से ये याद आया, आई थिंक ये जो पाकिस्तान में इलीट यूनिवर्सिटीज के स्टूडेंट्स है, दे फिगर इट आउट के क्या करना है, और वो उनको एक्सपोजर भी होता है और उनको यूनिवर्सिटी में ट्रेनिंग भी मिलती है. अगेन फॉर दोज ऑफ यू हु आर फ्रॉम पब्लिक सेक्टर यूनिवर्सिटीज, जिस तरह मीना ने कहा, आपने बहुत सारे ऐसे काम स्टूडेंट सोसाइटीज में किए होंगे जो आपको लगते हैं इनसिग्निफिकेंट है, बट दे आर सिग्निफिकेंट. ये एलीट यूनिवर्सिटीज के बच्चे तो अब वो ट्रेडमार्क बन गया. जब मैं एप्लीकेशंस देखता हूँ कि एनजीओ रजिस्टर करा ली, क्या कहते हैं, इफ्तार जो फूड ड्राइव्स है रमजान में, वो ऑर्गेनाइज कर ली. सो आप अगर वो कर सकते, वो नहीं भी कर सकते. जो व्हाट आई रियलाइज, सम ऑफ अस, हम तो अपने सोशल सेटिंग्स में ही वॉलंटियरिंग कर रहे होते हैं, हम मेंटरशिप कर रहे होते हैं, हमने अपनी फैमिली में, अपने गांव में, अपने नेटवर्क्स में लोगों को मेंटरशिप की होती है. सो दैट्स, इफ यू हैव नथिंग टू एल्स टू से, ये भी एग्जांपल्स है जो कि हम समझते हैं. ये तो अभी कैपिटलिस्ट सिस्टम में वॉलंटियरिज्म एक प्रोफेशन बन गया है. हमारे और आपके समाज में तो हम बचपन से ही वॉलंटियरिंग करते आते हैं. गांव में शादियों से लेके खुशी गम में एक दूसरे का साथ देते हैं, हेल्प करते हैं. सो दोज आर आल्सो थिंग्स टू लुक फॉर इन केस आपकी सीवी में कोई ज्यादा जो है और ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है, कोई ग्लैमरस.
I would say also, okay, not everyone here will be from a social science background, and in science, this looks very different. What contribution looks like, what leadership looks like. Scientific backgrounds have a very different way of looking at that. You don't have to have an NGO to show leadership potential or to show contribution. Let's say you were doing a research project on some topic in a scientific field, but you had some leadership component in one small part. You suggested something, then the team did it, or you took initiative, you took one part of that project and you led that one part. That counts. So you don't need to register an NGO, you don't need to go out and do one kind of volunteering that everybody does the same thing. Anything you've done matters. Think about what you've done, and I'm sure you have a lot more than you realize.
All right. Thank you both. So I realize that we're already at the end of this hour. So before taking any more questions, I'll ask both of you if you have to leave, or if you're willing to stay on, then we can take a couple of more questions. But I think Minha, you had to leave.
I can do 5 more minutes, but then anybody who wants to send me an email, I can leave my email address and you can just get in touch.
I think Wajeeha, I have to leave, unfortunately. But thank you very much for organizing this, and Minha, thank you very much. It was a great honor to share the same panel with you. Wajeeha, before I leave, are you the Wajeeha that I know, or am I just mistaken?
I think you do. I think you have also workshopped my statement once.
Okay. So चले, good to see you. So अपना ख्याल रखें. खुदा हाफिज. बहुत शुक्रिया जी.
Thank you so much for taking your time. And I'll just quickly ask people so we can get in a couple of more questions before you have to leave. Hussein, please go ahead.
Sorry, I had a similar question and it has been answered.
Okay, perfect. Iram?
Hi, so I have two quick questions. One about whether Gates Cambridge gives preference to certain disciplines over others. So, for instance, I'm from humanities, literature in particular, and I wonder if there is a priority list, where does that fall? Because of course, it's in some ways the leadership potential is more recognizable within social sciences than humanities. I mean, humanities you can be a leader in creative ways, but I think it's a different kind of leadership. So whether there is a priority of discipline that the public is not usually aware about. And the other question is, do you have any tips for reaching out to potential supervisors? Like, what do you say in your first email to them? Is it better to directly email them the proposal, or should you be brief in the first email? Thank you, Minha.
Course. So I think, like I mentioned, what your statement will look like is very specific to what your field is. If, for example, I'm in education, previous education experience is really good. But if you're somebody in humanities, there might be a different way to showcase leadership and a different way to showcase contribution. The contribution you make might not be in the same way that a social scientist thinks about it, or a teacher thinks about it, or a policymaker thinks about it. And that's fine. They will not, there's no kind of way that they prefer one over another. They do have categories, for example, science scholars, different science scholarships versus, social science versus humanities, etc. But there's no clear preference. So I would say just be the best at what you are doing. The other question about how to reach out to PhD supervisors. So I would recommend you think about your idea and you write them an email, very short email, to say, here's who I am, here's the idea I have for my PhD proposal, and here's how that work is very similar to your interests. And so I would like to speak with you. Try to get them on a call, or to see if even if they respond. Sometimes they don't respond, you can email another person, and that's fine. Do your best to find somebody who aligns with you, but write them a short email with your interests, how that aligns with their interests, and ask them to get on a call, most likely.
Thank you.
All right, I think we'll just take the last question from Haris then. Haris, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah, we could hear you, but you're on mute now.
Okay, so Minha, I have a question. I have my degree in commerce, then I have a master's in education, and I want specifically to work for autistic students. I have worked a lot in design curriculum and instructional design for autistic students for mathematics. But I don't have any degree in psychology, but I have my master's in education. Do you think working for Pakistan for autistic students on inclusion, and then after this PhD, if I come back and write that I want to come back to my own country and work for autistic students, do you think will that be an eligibility criteria for the scholarship, or my impact should be global?
Your impact definitely doesn't need to be global. If your aim is that I want to study this thing in Pakistan and then go back and improve that same thing in Pakistan, amazing. That's what they're looking for. But I think it would be good to also show that improving, for example, education for people with autism in Pakistan, some people from other countries might also be able to learn from that. So yes, you are only improving Pakistani education system, but maybe other countries can take inspiration from you. So always think about, maybe I can't fix everything in the world, but I can be a source of inspiration if I find something in my research that can be shared with others around the globe. And I would say, if you are somebody who's coming from a background who hasn't studied exactly that same thing that you're going to study for, just make sure that you make it very clear how your experiences in commerce and your experiences in education are preparing you for being a good researcher in this area. So you don't have to have worked in, for example, autistic education at any point, but you do need to say, because of education, I've realized these issues and this is how I'm going to fix it. And these are how my previous experiences have made me a good candidate for this. Yeah, but definitely a local impact is great. That's not a problem.
And for the work I have done for Lahore Autism Center and a school in Karachi, will that work be counted as work experience, or that will not be counted?
all of it is counted. There is nothing that's not counted. Every single thing is counted. Even if you volunteered somewhere for 1 week, that's counted. Do not just remove something because you're not sure. Everything you've done, this is your story, this is your life, all of it is counted.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Minha. Thank you for taking out the time and also for staying over time. And thank you to Rafiuallah as well. I think with that, we can wrap up our session. I've sent in the link for our YouTube channel in the recording, in the chat, and the recording will be made available, I believe, in a couple of days. If you have any questions, you can also check out our website where we have resources for different scholarships. Thank you once again, Minha and Rafiullah, for today's session, and thank you everyone for joining.
Wajeeha, one question. Should I share my email address here, or are you able to get it to participants later on via an email?
I think you can just share it here because it's a public workshop, so I don't think we'd be able to email everyone.
Great, thank you so much.
I think I've lost the host right, so I'm not sure if I can end the meeting, but we'll just wrap up here.
Great, thank you so much.